Hello and welcome to my Cinderella adaptation presentation. I am Muñeca Hemingway and I am so excited to compare and contrast these very different versions of Cinderella, the classic Disney fairy tale Cinderella. So growing up in the roughest part of San Bernardino, I've never could relate to Disney's Cinderella because I, didn't see people married, didn't see people fall in love and live happily ever after. However, I could also not relate to the evil stepmother and stepsisters because I have one of the most loving, caring, kind mothers and families around. So it was a catch-22 for me growing up. So when I would read the story or watch the Disney movie, I would really be taken away to the fairy tale. Like, oh man, that's so beautiful. It was a dream, like reading and watching it, but I didn't think it was attainable just because of my background. So the three adaptations of Cinderella that I will be discussing today are Ella Enchanted, The Rough-Faced Girl, and The Irish Cinderlad, which is my favorite. Though these three adaptations are very different, they do carry a few similar traits, and one of those is of obedience, which Cinderella also carries as well. So the first adaptation is Ella Enchanted, and it's by Gail Carson Levine, and she wrote it in 1997. So Ella Enchanted is like this beautiful girl. She's the main character. She's clumsy, she's funny, she's witty, but she has a curse on her, and the curse is of obedience, which means she has to do whatever someone says. So when someone gives her an order, she has to do it, whether or not it's going to hurt herself or someone else. She has to do it. The villains in Ella Enchanted are sisters who are not her sisters, but they are a set of sisters, as well as her father, who is just money hungry and not very kind to her. The flip side of this is that the Prince Char, actually likes Ella and falls in love with Ella because of the friendship that they developed and because she was not finished, which means she was not perfect. So that was a little different than Cinderella. And yes, they lived happily ever after. Okay, so the second one probably has the most beautiful illustrations that I've ever seen in my life, and it is The Rough-Faced Girl, and that's written by Rafe Martin and illustrated by David Shannon. The illustrations in here, you guys have read it, are the most beautiful things, pictures, drawings ever. It's beautiful. So the Rough-Faced Girl, she had evil sisters who told her what to do, and of course she was obedient, which is why they called her a rough-faced girl. They ordered her to feed the fire, which in turn popped the flames on her, so it burnt her skin and her hair, thus becoming the rough-faced girl. The rough-faced girl won over the heart of the invisible being because of her connection to nature, which is definitely important to Native Americans and their history. So the rough-faced girl at the end of the story was beautiful, and they lived happily ever after. Okay, last but not least is probably my favorite adaptation, and it is The Irish Cinderlad. I really like The Irish Cinderlad because it was a young man. It wasn't the princess or the girl, damsel in distress. It was a young man. So Beacon, his mother had passed away, so his dad remarried, and here comes the villains, the evil stepmother and stepsisters. So they ordered Beacon to be a cow herder, and of course, obedient. That's what Beacon did. He herd cows. He was befriended by a bull, but let me go back. So his trait was that he had really big feet. So that was something that stood out for him, that he had really big feet. Ella had a curse, rough-faced girl, of course, had the rough face and skin, and he had really big feet. So when he was ordered out to be a cowherd, of course, he was being obedient, and he went out to the fields to herd the cows. He was befriended by a bull of all things, and the bull would feed him and talk to him and encourage him. And the bull was going to fight, and the bull said, "When I die, twist off my tail." Of course, that was his friend. He didn't want to do it, but being obedient, he twisted off the bull's tail after he died, and that gave him good luck. He went on to then fight a giant, take his boots. After that, he went on to save a fair maiden by fighting off a dragon, right? So this bull tail gave him like superhuman powers. But in the hustle of fighting off the dragon, he lost one of his boots. He was trying to get away, and the fair maiden was like, "No," and she grabbed one of his boots. So fast forward, it took a year for the fair maiden's people to find the Cinderlad. They were looking for whoever could fit the boot the fair maiden was going to marry. So it took a year to find who fit the boot. And this is comparison to Cinderella's glass slipper, but this time it's a really big boot. So the fair maiden found Beacon, and they too lived happily ever after. So those are my 3 adaptations of Cinderella. Again, Ella Enchanted, the rough-faced girl, and the Irish Cinderlad. Hope you enjoy.